the Scrum Team. The Scrum Team creates a product in sprints. What is a product? A product is a vehicle to deliver value. It has a clear boundary, known stakeholders, and well-defined users or customers. A product could be a service, a physical product, or something more abstract. So the goal is to deliver value, and to deliver value, we need to create product. Who will do this? Who is going to create the product? The Scrum Team. The Scrum Team is typically 10 of your people. It consists of one product owner, developers, and one Scrum Master. Within the Scrum Team, there are no sub-teams. There are no hierarchies. It is a cohesive unit of professionals focused on one objective at a time, the product goal. It is small enough to remain nimble. Smaller teams communicate better and are more productive. And it is large enough to complete significant amount of work within the sprint. What if our Scrum Team becomes too large, much more than 10 people? Then they should consider reorganizing into multiple cohesive Scrum Teams, each focused on the same product. There are three important characteristics of the Scrum Team. It is cross-functional, self-managing, and accountable. Let's discuss them one by one. So, the first one. The Scrum Team is cross-functional, meaning its members have all the skills necessary to create value each sprint. It is a group of people who collectively have all the skills and expertise to do the work. And if they don't have them, they share or acquire such skills as needed. The Scrum Team is responsible for all product-related activities: stakeholder collaboration, requirements elicitation, designing, coding, testing, verification, maintenance, operation, experimentation, research, development, and anything else that might be required. The second trait. The Scrum Team is also self-managing, meaning team members internally decide who does what, when, and how. There is a corresponding principle in the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Previous Scrum guides referred to development teams not as self-managing but as self-organizing, choosing who and how to do the work, but not what to do, with more of a focus on the Scrum Team and with the product owner being part of the team. The current version of the Scrum Guide emphasizes a self-managing Scrum Team, choosing who, how, and what to work on. Scrum Teams are structured and empowered by the organization to manage their own work. There is another corresponding principle in the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. Build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. How is self-management implemented in real work? Can people really work without a manager who would tell them what to do and how to do it? Yes, they can, successfully. For example, at the daily Scrum event, in which only developers participate, they, without any help, focus on progress toward the sprint goal and produce an actionable plan for the next day of work. No manager participates in the meeting. Another example. At the sprint planning, the developers, for each product backlog item, plan the work necessary to create an increment that meets the definition of done. In particular, they may choose to decompose product backlog items into smaller work items. An important point here is that how this is done is at the sole discretion of the developers. No one else tell them how to turn product backlog items into value. And one more example. At the daily Scrum, the developers of the Scrum team inspect the progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary, adjusting the upcoming planned work. Also, they often meet throughout the day for more detailed discussions about adapting and replanning the rest of the sprint's work. Do they constantly think about it themselves, without reminders and control? Eventually, yes. I've seen teams do this really well. And before reaching this state, the Scrum Master coaches the team members in self-management and cross-functionality. Then, what is the drawback of not being empowered and self-managing? When the people involved are not empowered or self-managing, adaptation becomes more difficult. Also, motivation, commitment, and execution drop. And number 3, Scrum team is accountable. Scrum defines 3 specific accountabilities within the Scrum team: the developers, the product owner, and the Scrum Master. It might be worth mentioning that they are no longer called roles, they are now called accountabilities. And this is a wonderful shift, absolutely wonderful. Why? Because previously, the employees were clearly aligned with their positions. And this limited mutual assistance. I bet you heard such a phrase at least a couple of times. This is not in my job description. And team members didn't want to learn skills that their peers had, and therefore the professional development of the employees was narrow and self-limiting. Then there was a wonderful transition from positions to roles. Regardless of the position and title of the employee, it was possible to perform different roles. In fact, parallels were often still created between positions and roles, and the role corresponded to the core competence. One popular problem is usually stated by a team like this: we need a tester. Well, actually, no, you don't need a tester. First, you need a testing competence, for which you don't always need to hire an individual. And now, luckily, the next step is being taken, from roles to team responsibility and accountability. It's not so important who has what role. It is more important that the entire team is competent enough to create product increments. Now let's get back to the Scrum Guide. In Scrum, the entire Scrum team is accountable for creating valuable increments every sprint. The Scrum Master helps the Scrum team focus on creating high-value increments that meet the definition of done. There are no hierarchies. The entire Scrum team is accountable for creating useful increments each sprint. Here you may object. Shared collective responsibility does not work. Well, it depends on the conditions. Indeed, it works worse or does not work at all in large teams. But we are talking about a small team of 10 of your people who work on the same product in the same rhythm set by sprints and meetings. And each of the 4+1 Scrum events helps to strengthen this team accountability. How exactly? I will tell you about it when we discuss each event. And who is accountable for the effectiveness of the team members? The Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness. But how? Scrum Master enables the Scrum team to improve its practices. Without any authority? Yes. Because the team is cross-functional, self-managing, and empowered. Does it work? Yes, it works. I've seen how it works, and I've done it myself. Honestly, it works just fine. Let's summarize. Scrum team creates product in sprints. The Scrum team is a small team of typically 10 or fewer people. It consists of 3 accountabilities: 1 product owner, developers, 1 Scrum Master. The Scrum team is cross-functional. The members collectively have all the skills and expertise necessary to create valuable increments each sprint. They are responsible for all product-related activities. The Scrum team is self-managing. The team members internally decide who does what, when, and how. It is structured and empowered by the organization to manage its own work. The Scrum team, with no sub-teams or inside hierarchies, is entirely accountable for creating useful increments that meet the definition of done every sprint.